So, Luce, you asked me a question about what does it mean when I say that it's all physics. I had written about how the notion of the declaration of it's all physics, how that exercise has helped me on many occasions, and it can be a profound experience. Now, I have to give you some historical context when I talk about the that declaration, that abracadabra realization of it's all physics. I'm freestyling this, so I don't have an elaborate, systematic way of approaching it. I'm going to start by saying it all started with meditation, though, and a meditation, the engagement of meditation, where one realizes that you do not, in fact, have to identify with your feelings. An elaboration upon that is, let's say you feel anger, let's say you feel sadness. You can is a couple of ways that can happen. It could happen where I feel sad, therefore I am sad. That is the thought. Those are the words that are dictating and influencing my internal world. I'm sad. I'm sad. I'm sad. Or there's another psychological mental position you can take. If you look at, it's a position that's on. I have to speak in very subjective terms because the notion of it's all physics and everything I'm talking about is profoundly subjective. It's the ultimate subjective thing. And so I'm going to use language that I feel best illustrates and describes what I experience and what I'm seeing. So when you can either feel sad or you can sit on what I would call the perch of the observer. You can there's a position in the mind that we can quote unquote sit on, that we can put ourselves in, where you can just be purely an observer. And what that means is I am now, see, before this is quote unquote me, and this is sadness. I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad. When you sit on the perch of the observer, this is me and this is sadness, or this is me and this is sadness. I'm looking at it and observing it as opposed to feeling as though I'm identifying with it. And I am not saying that to be this way with sadness is bad. All I'm speaking to is the fact that you can look at sadness from this position. And it is, I would say, an exercise. I had first glimpsed this when I was reading Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, around the age of 25. That book is very good. It's called Waking Up. I think it's an excellent read. And you don't have to agree with anything that Sam Harris says. You don't have to agree with any of his point of views. But that book, what he's speaking to in regards to what meditation is, the nature of meditation, that really unlocked something in my mind. There was a passage where he suggested, look for this person you think you are. I'm roughly speaking to it. It was like, look for John, look for Jane. I looked for Marcus. I was already engaging in meditative practices where I was sitting in stillness and while sitting in silence with breathing. That, like, just your breathing alone helps along that meditative exercise, that contemplative exercise, just focusing on your breath alone, right? But I wasn't focusing on my breath alone for necessarily meditative purposes. I was practicing it unaware that it had an association, or that it was like a secondary muscle to meditation, if not the key to meditation itself, or a meditative state, I should say. In the passage of Sam Harris's book, he said, he suggested you look for yourself, and I looked for Marcus. I looked for quote unquote Marcus. I remember it very clearly. I just stared off into this space, and I went into behind my eyes, and I looked for Marcus. And what happened was, my mind had cleared in a way that I didn't know was possible. It only lasted for about like 5 seconds, but it was just like a what the heck for me. And what happened was, there was a very clear realization that my mind wasn't as, I never experienced a true thoughtless, wordless state. These are now my words. Everything from here on is going to be like my words, my description. What I experienced, what I would call, it was a wordless state, a thoughtless state, and it made me. It was very clear when you observe, when you give your undivided attention to the contents of your mind. How about this? All right, I'm sorry, I have it. You engage in the thoughtless, wordless state. And it's a bit of a surrendering, a mental psychological surrendering when you watch a fantastic movie, when you listen to a fantastic song. Your undivided attention is given to the film. Your undivided attention is given to the beautiful music, and it takes you away, right? However, it's rare that one gives their undivided attention not to something internal. We are always giving our undivided attention when it's given. Typically, it's given to something outside of us. It's another thing to give your undivided attention to the contents of your consciousness, as one would put it, or it's just an undivided attention to that which is happening behind your eyes, in between your ears. And what was going on was I had given an undivided attention to the space of my mind, and I had put that undivided attentive energy into quote unquote looking for this person I thought I was, or looking for this person that I feel to be like, look, I'm Marcus, look for Marcus. And what happened was, it was like this was my mind, and then I looked for Marcus, and then when like the ocean was still. And I was like, oh damn. And I realized you don't realize how much you're thinking. You don't realize how much mental activity is going on until it sits still, and it kind of will knock you on your ass, and you kind of have, and then from there, when you keep engaging in that practice, you typically can have an ego death. You typically can observe energies for what they are. And it's hard for me not to call them anything but energies. Sadness and anger and whatnot, these are energies. And whether they're good or bad, that's not, you don't have to assign any kind of value to them in that regard. Instead, you can look at them purely as energy. Now, this is all easier said than done, because it's going back to the notion of it's all physics. So therefore, when you keep engaging in this practice, this meditative practice, giving your undivided attention to a kind of wordlessness, I think that's the best way to put it. Sometimes meditation is looked at as ceasing your thoughts. I'd rather look at it as ceasing your words initially, because our thoughts are often they're dictated by words. And if you instead focus on having a wordlessness, you then are more able to sit on that perch of the observer, as I call it. You're more able to, what I would argue, be a pure observer. And you realize that your anger is merely a form of energy, and you are not your anger. Your sadness is a form of energy, and you are not necessarily your sadness. And then in that respect, it's all physics. I'm not trying to trivialize emotion, but it is all the consequence of a cascade of chemical reactions that is occurring within you. And you can see it, and you can put it in its place in that sense. All right, I'll do better. I'll make it even clearer, because this is when you're hungry. This is one of the best examples. When you're very, very, very hungry, and you therefore get angry, many people. There's a reason why it's called hangry. Many people, when they're hungry, and then they're therefore in an irritated state as a result of that, they don't tend to say to themselves, or tend to observe within themselves, this irritability does not, it's not me. I'm just feel, it's just something I'm feeling. It's a signal that's being communicated to me, but I am not irritated. Instead, what happens is, so it's not like this. Remember this? So this is you, this is irritation, this is being hungry, and this is you. And often people are doing this with their hunger. However, when you're a person, the observer, you can look at your hunger from here, and you can then not allow it to inform your reactions and your communication with other people. When you can you see it for what it is. You realize it's just the physics of hunger. That's the best way to put it. Oh God, because it's when it comes to other emotions, it's hard to really. I think that makes it the most clear. You can see it for what it is. It's not that deep necessarily. Being hungry is deep. Being hungry is meaningful. And the irritation that it caused that compels you to then go and make sure you get some food, that's all very important, very meaningful. There's nothing trivial about that. However, the reason why someone's grumpiness and irritability then creates all kinds of toxicity and all kinds of issues and conflict that it shouldn't cause, is because their irritability is more like this, and they're not observing it for the physics that it is. Therefore, they don't have a kind of perspective on it, and that's what It's All Physics is. It is essentially a perspective. That being said, I'm not saying it's not, I haven't experienced any kind of light switch effect where you can realize this and then without any exercise, mental exercise, you don't have to do anything. I've never noticed anything to be a realization to where therefore you don't have to flex your mental muscles to constantly see it. It's kind of like you can be aware of what it takes to build muscle. You could be totally aware of that. That's not enough to just be aware of what it takes. You still have to put the effort in. The same thing with the notion of it's all physics. I can understand that it's all physics. I can understand that the fear I feel, just like Mike Tyson's coming out of I was watching an interview with him, he perfectly understands this in regards to his fear. He recognizes that, yeah, I feel the sensation and the energy of fear, but he alchemizes it. He puts it in its place. He has a perspective on it. It helps energize him and galvanize him, and he has an understanding of it. That's because he's observing it. That's because a lot of the behaviors that he was trained in and conditioned in by Customato and just throughout his life, he has been engaging in basically meditative states, and he does a lot of psychedelics and whatnot, but his interest is in a meditative state, essentially as an oversimplification, to where he recognizes my fear is just the physics of it's just a consequence of the fact that I'm about to do something very consequential and very tentative, and the outcome is who knows, and I have these insecurities and all this and that, but yet I still push forward. That's the recognizing that it's physics. This fear is an energy, and that it doesn't just solve everything. It's not a silver bullet to say that it's all physics. Okay, I have another one, and I'm gonna shut up. When you're sleep deprived, a lot of people, when they're sleep, these are the best examples to me to illustrate this. When somebody is very sleep deprived, typically there's a reason why they keep being sleep deprived and then they're like a nasty individual, and like I'm talking about personality wise, behaviorally, because they're not recognizing that they take for granted that their irritability and their lack of being able to be an aware person, a kind person, a warm person, a collaborative person. Oftentimes they look at sleep like it's not that serious. I don't need it. It's not that consequential. But to recognize that it's all physics is to recognize that I don't have a choice. I need sleep in order for my chemistry, which is it's all beholden to the laws of physics. My chemistry, my humanity, my internal completeness or incompleteness is dictated by sleep, nourishment, physical activity, and even the way we engage each other. But let's focus on sleep for a bit. If you recognize that it's all physics, you're more likely to have more of a respect for something like sleep, because you realize it has nothing to do with your wants. When you recognize it's all physics, it's like also, when you let go of your wants and surrender to just pure observation, you realize that, damn, I'm exhausted. Damn, I'm tired. Damn, I'm a fool. Damn, it's the physics of me not getting my rest. I am the culmination of the physics of me not getting my nourishment. I am the culmination of, even if I'm doing everything right and this is not going right, it's still the physics of something. Whether or not, it doesn't matter that we don't understand why we are the way we are. It doesn't matter. It's similar to like just the laws of nature and the universe itself. Nature doesn't care whether we understand it or not. It's all physics. And that's just the bottom line. And I feel like, man, it's hard to talk. It's something that I feel is difficult to explain for me. And I apologize for that, because it's so subjective. Not because it's difficult to explain, because it's all observations I'm making internally, and there's nothing that I can point to outside of myself that really summarizes it. But I think the example of sleep deprivation and hunger are the best examples, where a lot of people are heavily influenced by their sleep deprivation and their irritability from malnourishment or from massive hunger, and I mean myself included. And instead, if we looked at it like it's all physics, we would then be more inclined to engage in the solution. Anyway, I digress. Hey, bless y'all.